Her son brought an Apache slave. What the rancher did shocked everyone. White heavy check mark. The land was quiet except for the soft sound of cattle moving in the distance and the occasional crow from a nearby tree. In a small, sturdy house at the center of the ranch, the family was beginning their morning routines. The rancher, a tall man with broad shoulders and weathered hands, moved with calm purpose, feeding the animals and checking the fences. His wife quietly tended the garden, while their son, full of youthful energy, prepared for a journey beyond the ranch. Life on the ranch was simple but demanding, and every member of the family had learned the value of hard work, honesty, and respect for one another. For years, the rancher had built a reputation in the town nearby as a man who was fair, brave, and wise. He treated his neighbors and workers with kindness, but never allowed anyone to take advantage of him. People knew they could trust him to make just decisions, even in difficult situations. His son admired him deeply and often dreamed of one day carrying on the family's legacy with the same sense of honor and courage. On this particular morning, however, something unusual was about to disturb the calm routine of the ranch. The son had returned from a trip to a distant trading post, a journey he had taken to sell the family's surplus goods and to gather supplies for the coming months. He usually returned with just a few barrels of flour, some tools, and perhaps a small gift for his mother. But today his return was different. As he approached the house, he was not alone. Behind him, walking slowly and carefully, was a young boy who looked completely out of place on the open plains. The boy was thin, with dark hair and eyes that held both fear and curiosity. He wore worn clothing, clearly made from rough materials that had seen many days of wear. His hands were calloused, his posture hesitant, and yet there was something strong in the way he held his head, as if he had survived hardships that could have broken others. The son guided him carefully toward the house, glancing nervously at the ground, unsure how his father would react to this unexpected arrival. As the rancher looked up from where he was repairing a fence, he immediately noticed the boy. There was a moment of silence as his eyes studied him, taking in every detail. The boy's cautious movements, his wary glance, and the mixture of fear and hope in his expression. The townspeople often spoke of children taken from distant lands during the ongoing conflicts, and the rancher had heard many tragic stories of young ones forced into slavery, treated as property rather than people. But this boy was different. There was no anger or aggression in him, only a quiet resilience that seemed to call out for help and understanding. The mother stepped out onto the porch just in time to see the son and his unexpected companion approaching. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized the boy's appearance. She had heard rumors from other women in town about children from the Apache communities being captured during raids and traded or sold. The thought of such a child appearing at her doorstep, guided by her own son, filled her with a mix of fear, concern, and curiosity. She hurried to meet them, her hands trembling slightly, not out of weakness but because she knew the situation was delicate. How they responded in these first moments could shape the boy's entire life and affect the reputation of their family in the town. The son, sensing his mother's anxiety, stepped forward quickly. "Mother, father," he said, his voice steady despite the tension, "I need to tell you something. I found him. He was being kept against his will. I couldn't leave him there. I brought him here so he would be safe." The rancher's face remained calm, but his eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in careful consideration. He had always taught his son to think before acting, to understand both the consequences of his choices and the moral responsibility that came with them. Bringing a stranger onto the ranch, especially a boy from a community often misunderstood by the town, was not a simple matter. The law, the neighbors' opinions, and even the safety of their family had to be considered. And yet, the rancher also recognized the courage it took for his son to act according to what he believed was right, even when it was difficult. The boy hung back, his gaze fixed on the ground. He did not speak, but the rancher could see the faint signs of a life filled with fear and hardship. Small scars on his arms, a bruise fading on his cheek, and the nervous twitch of his fingers all told a story of suffering that words could not fully express. Despite this, the boy's posture hinted at resilience. He had survived something terrible and had somehow found a way to remain strong. There was a dignity in him that commanded respect. The mother stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. "Why did you bring him here?" she asked, her eyes searching her son's for an answer that would make sense of this sudden disruption. The son's gaze met hers, steady and unwavering. "I couldn't leave him there," he said simply. "He needed help and I knew we could give it." "Please, mother, father, I'm asking you to trust me." The rancher finally spoke, his voice low but carrying weight. "We cannot make decisions in haste," he said, "especially about someone else's life. We must consider the law, the town, and most importantly, what is right. But we will not turn our backs on someone in need, either." His words, measured and calm, brought a strange sense of relief to the boy, who now looked up slightly, as if trying to understand the strange kindness in these strangers' eyes. Neighbors passing by began to notice the unusual scene. Whispers spread quickly through the town. "The rancher's son has brought an Apache boy to their home." Some shook their heads in disbelief, while others expressed concern about what such an act might mean for the family. The rancher's decision would be watched closely, and any misstep could bring criticism or even danger. But he was a man who relied on principles, not gossip. He knew that the right choice was rarely the easy one. Inside the house, the family gathered in the main room to discuss the next steps. The boy remained silent, sitting on the edge of a wooden chair, hands clasped tightly together. The mother offered him some water and simple bread, which he accepted with hesitancy. She spoke softly, "You are safe here. We will not harm you." Her words were simple, but the tone carried sincerity and warmth. For the first time in a long while, the boy allowed himself a small flicker of hope, a quiet thought that perhaps he could trust these strangers. The rancher studied the boy carefully. He could see the fear and caution in the young man's eyes, but also a spark of intelligence and curiosity. "Tell me your name," the rancher said, his voice calm. The boy hesitated, then whispered it softly, as if testing whether the words could be trusted to stay in the air. "Tay," he said. The name was short but carried weight, and the rancher nodded in acknowledgement. "Tay," he repeated. "You will have a place here, but you must understand that life on a ranch is not easy. You will learn, work, and live with respect. Do you understand?" Tay nodded slowly. Though he did not speak much, his eyes reflected understanding and relief. He had endured harsh treatment, fear, and uncertainty, and yet here was someone offering him protection without conditions. The rancher's words were firm but fair, offering guidance rather than punishment. The son felt a sense of pride and relief as he watched his father handle the situation with such wisdom. He had acted from compassion, and now he could see that his father's calm, deliberate approach was giving Tay a chance to start anew. The mother's hands trembled slightly as she moved to prepare a small bed for Tay in one corner of the house. She hoped he would feel welcomed, safe, and accepted, even in a world that had often treated him with cruelty. As the day went on, Tay began to explore the house and the small yard, still cautious but curious. The rancher observed him from a distance, noting how he interacted with the animals and how he responded to the kindness and firmness of the family. He did not rush the boy, understanding that trust was built slowly, especially for someone who had faced so much hardship. By evening, the rancher and his family sat together around the wooden table, eating a modest meal. Outside, the sun was setting, casting warm hues across the plains. The family spoke quietly about the day, reflecting on what had occurred. Tay sat with them, listening and observing, beginning to feel a sense of belonging for the first time in his life. That night, as the stars appeared in the vast sky, the rancher walked outside to stand on the porch. He looked out over the plains, thinking about the unexpected turn of events. A boy had entered their lives, changing everything in ways they could not yet fully understand. And yet he felt certain that the right thing had been done. In a world where cruelty often went unchallenged, compassion was a rare and powerful choice. As Tay lay in his small bed, he finally allowed himself to close his eyes without fear. For the first time, he dreamed of a life where he might be free, safe, and accepted. And for the rancher and his family, the arrival of the boy marked the beginning of a journey that would test their courage, compassion, and the very values that defined them. Life on the ranch would never be the same, but it was about to become richer, deeper, and more meaningful than they could have ever imagined. And so, the story of the boy, the son, and the rancher began. A story of courage, kindness, and the unexpected ways in which lives can intersect to change hearts forever. The morning after Tay's arrival, the ranch was unusually quiet. The sun rose gently over the open plains, spreading light across the fields where cattle grazed peacefully. Inside the ranch house, the family gathered for breakfast, but the mood was different. There was an air of tension, a mixture of curiosity, concern, and a lingering sense of responsibility. The rancher poured coffee into mugs, his hands steady, yet his eyes reflected the weight of the decision that lay ahead. The son sat across from him, glancing nervously at Tay, who was quietly eating bread and honey. The boy's movements were cautious. He had learned early in life to watch and listen before acting. The son could see it in his eyes. Tay's mind was working, trying to understand this strange new environment, trying to gauge whether the rancher and his mother could truly be trusted. The mother set down a plate of eggs and bacon, her hands trembling slightly. She had been thinking all night about the consequences of keeping Tay. Could they truly protect him from the town's judgment? Could they provide him a safe place to grow, free from fear? Her heart ached for the boy, but she also worried for her own family. The son noticed her hesitation and spoke softly, "Mother, he deserves a chance. He's not dangerous. He's just a boy who needs help." The mother sighed and looked at Tay. "I understand that," she said, her voice gentle, "but we must think carefully. Life on a ranch is hard, even for our family. This boy will need guidance, patience, and protection. Are we ready to give all that?" The rancher listened quietly, letting his wife and son speak first. He had always believed in giving people the chance to voice their concerns before making decisions. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm but firm. "We will not make hasty choices," he said. "Tay is in our care now. That is certain. But we must consider what is best for him, for our family, and for the community. The right path is not always easy, and it often requires courage." Tay looked up at the rancher, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. He did not speak, but his gaze conveyed a silent plea. "Please, do not send me away." The rancher's heart softened slightly at the sight, remembering the stories he had heard of children like Tay, young ones taken from their homes, forced to endure unimaginable suffering. He knew that offering safety and kindness could mean everything to this boy. The son leaned forward, eager to defend his actions. "Father," he said, "he was not safe where I found him. The people keeping him, they were cruel. He deserves to live freely, to learn, to grow without fear. I know it is unusual to bring someone like him into our home, but I believe it is the right thing to do." The rancher nodded slowly. "I do not doubt your intentions," he said, "but intentions alone do not solve problems. We must act wisely. People in the town may not understand our decision. Some may speak against it, some may even try to interfere. Are you prepared for that?" The son swallowed hard but met his father's gaze. "I am," he said. "I will stand by what I did." I could not turn my back on him. The mother watched the exchange quietly, torn between admiration for her son's courage and fear for the challenges that lay ahead. She moved closer to Tay and spoke softly. "You must understand, This is not a normal situation. You will have to work hard, learn quickly, and respect the rules of this home. Do you understand? Tay nodded, his lips pressed together in determination. He had learned to survive by following rules and earning trust, and he understood that this family could be the first people to treat him with fairness and kindness. He wanted to prove himself worthy of their protection. The discussion continued through the morning. The rancher and his wife debated the practicalities of keeping Tay, while the son explained what he had seen during his journey, the harsh treatment, the fear in the boy's eyes, and the courage he had shown despite everything. The more the parents listened, the more they realized that Tay was not just a victim. He was a strong, intelligent, and capable boy who could learn, contribute, and even inspire those around him. By midday, a plan began to form. The rancher would give Tay a chance to live on the ranch under their guidance, but it would not be easy. He would have to learn the chores, respect the rules, and prove his trustworthiness. At the same time, the family agreed that they would treat him as a guest and a member of their household, not as a servant or burden. This decision required courage, for it went against the prejudices held by much of the town. But the rancher believed that showing kindness and fairness was more important than following old traditions that had no moral foundation. Tay began his first day on the ranch with cautious curiosity. The son showed him how to carry water from the well, feed the animals, and gather firewood. The rancher observed quietly, occasionally offering guidance but allowing Tay to take initiative. The boy stumbled several times, dropping buckets or tripping over rocks, but he never gave up. His determination impressed the family, and even the mother smiled quietly as she watched him try, fail, and try again. As the day progressed, Tay began to open up slightly. He asked questions about the animals, the crops, and the land. His curiosity was natural, and his eagerness to learn reflected a mind that had been starved of knowledge and care for too long. The rancher, who had always valued education and practical skills equally, saw great potential in the boy. He realized that with guidance, Tay could become a fine young man, capable of handling challenges with intelligence and courage. The town, meanwhile, began to buzz with curiosity and gossip. People whispered about the boy who had been brought to the ranch. Some questioned the son's judgment, others doubted the family's ability to protect him. A few brave neighbors even spoke openly, suggesting that the boy might cause trouble or bring danger. But there were also those who quietly admired the family's courage, recognizing that helping someone in need required true strength. Back at the ranch, the family's discussion shifted from caution to planning. The rancher spoke with his wife and son about the importance of patience and observation. "Tay must learn our ways," he said, "but we must also learn his. Understanding his experiences, his fears, and his strengths will help us guide him properly. Trust is not given, it is earned, and we must be willing to earn his trust as much as he earns ours." The mother nodded thoughtfully. "It will take time," she said, "and we must be ready for challenges. Some in the town may try to interfere, and Tay may struggle with new rules and expectations. But I see his potential, and I want to help him. I can't stand the thought of sending him away to a life of fear and hardship." Tay listened quietly, understanding that this family was serious about helping him. For the first time in his life, he felt a sense of hope. He realized that he could trust them, and that perhaps this was the place where he could begin anew. He wanted to prove himself worthy of their kindness, not out of fear, but out of a growing desire to belong and to be part of a family that cared for him. By evening, Tay had completed several chores and had shown remarkable effort and perseverance. The son clapped him on the back and smiled, proud of his brother in spirit. The mother prepared a small meal for him, offering gentle encouragement and praise for his hard work. The rancher nodded in approval, recognizing that Tay's willingness to learn and adapt reflected strength of character. As the family sat together that night, the rancher spoke to Tay in a quiet, steady voice. "You are safe here," he said. "You will not be treated as property, nor will you be forced to do anything against your will. But you will have responsibilities, and you must work with us, learn from us, and respect this home. If you do, you will find more than safety. You will find trust, guidance, and perhaps even friendship." Tay felt a warmth he had never experienced before. The words were simple, yet they carried meaning beyond what he had known. For the first time, he realized that life could be different, not filled with fear, cruelty, and uncertainty, but with care, support, and understanding. He wanted to seize this opportunity, to show the family that their trust in him was not misplaced. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of the plains and the promise of a new day. The rancher looked out at the horizon, thinking about the challenges ahead. He knew that the decision to protect Tay would not be easy and that it might bring criticism or danger. But he also knew that true courage was not about avoiding fear. It was about doing what was right, even when others disagreed. And so, the second day of Tay's life on the ranch came to a close. It was a day of learning, understanding, and cautious trust. The boy had begun to adapt. The family had begun to embrace their new responsibility, and the foundation of a remarkable story was being built. One that would test courage, morality, and the bonds of trust in ways that none of them could yet imagine. The ranch, once quiet and routine, was now alive with new purpose. A boy who had known only fear was beginning to understand hope. A son who acted with compassion was learning the depth of his father's wisdom. And a family, guided by principles of fairness, courage, and love, was preparing to face challenges that would ultimately define them all. The journey had only just begun, but already it was clear that Tay's arrival would change everything, for better or worse. And as the stars appeared in the night sky, the rancher silently vowed to protect the boy, teach him, and guide him, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. The days that followed Tay's arrival were filled with activity on the ranch, but beyond its fences, the town was buzzing with curiosity and gossip. Word had spread quickly. The rancher's son had brought an Apache boy to their home. Some people were shocked, others skeptical, and a few admired the family's courage. Townspeople whispered in markets, near the blacksmith, and outside the saloon, debating whether the family had done the right thing or if they were inviting trouble. Some of the townsfolk were suspicious, questioning the boy's presence. "What if he brings danger to the family?" they muttered among themselves. "He is not one of us. How can we trust him?" Others were outraged that a child who had been considered property by those who captured him was now free and being treated with dignity. Such ideas were foreign to many, and the town was not accustomed to seeing kindness triumph over fear or tradition. Yet, there were those who quietly hoped the boy would be accepted, and that the family's compassion would set an example. Meanwhile, on the ranch, the family continued adjusting to Tay's presence. Each day, he learned something new about ranch life. He carried water, fed the animals, helped with chores, and slowly grew stronger and more confident. The son was patient, guiding him step by step, correcting mistakes without harshness. The mother nurtured him, offering gentle encouragement and praising his efforts. Even the rancher, who often preferred silence over words, observed closely, offering advice when necessary and testing Tay's judgment in small tasks. Despite their careful planning, the family could not ignore the outside pressure. One afternoon, a group of neighbors arrived at the ranch. They approached cautiously, their expressions a mix of curiosity, concern, and judgment. The rancher met them at the gate, his posture calm and confident. "What brings you here?" he asked politely but firmly. One of the men, a burly farmer known for speaking his mind, stepped forward. "We've heard rumors," he said, "that you've taken in an Apache boy. People are talking. Some say it is reckless, others say it is dangerous. How do you respond?" The rancher took a deep breath, his eyes steady. "The boy is safe here," he said. "He is under our care and he is not a threat to anyone, He will learn, he will work, and he will be treated with respect, just as anyone in this home would be. A murmur ran through the group. Some were skeptical, shaking their heads. Others seemed intrigued, perhaps even impressed by the rancher's calm confidence. One of the women, a neighbor who had long respected the rancher, spoke softly. "It is unusual, yes, but you have always been fair and just. Perhaps there is wisdom in your decision." The rancher nodded. "Wisdom is not always recognized immediately," he said. "But the right thing to do is not always the easy thing. Tay is a boy who has suffered, and he deserves a chance to live freely and safely. That is what we are giving him." The neighbors exchanged glances, some still doubtful, others considering the possibility that kindness could triumph over fear. The rancher's words were firm, yet they carried a quiet authority that left little room for argument. Slowly the group dispersed, leaving the family to return to their work, though the discussion of Tay's presence would linger in the town for days to come. Back at the ranch, Tay was learning more than just chores. He was beginning to understand the rhythms of life in a family that valued honesty, hard work, and mutual respect. The son encouraged him to speak his thoughts, to ask questions, and to express himself. Tay was cautious at first, but over time he began to show glimpses of his personality, a clever sense of humor, curiosity about the world, and a quiet determination to do well. The mother watched this transformation with amazement. Each small step Tay took toward confidence and self-expression was a triumph. She realized that while the town might judge them, their home was becoming a place of trust and growth for someone who had never experienced it before. The rancher, too, observed with quiet satisfaction. He knew that actions often spoke louder than words, and by treating Tay with respect and fairness, they were setting an example not just for him, but for the entire community. However, not everyone in the town approved. A few individuals, stubborn in their old beliefs, began to make threats, claiming that the family was breaking traditions or overstepping their bounds. The rancher knew that confrontation might come, and he prepared quietly, ensuring that the family could protect themselves without resorting to aggression. He had always believed that courage was measured by the ability to stand firm with integrity, not by the ability to fight. One evening, as the sun set over the plains, casting warm light across the fields, the son and Tay worked together to repair a fence. Tay struggled with the heavy posts, but the son encouraged him. "You can do this," he said. One step at a time, slowly, with effort and patience, the fence was repaired. Tay looked up at the son, a small smile on his face. "I am learning," he said quietly. The son smiled back. "Yes, you are," he said, "and every day you will learn more. It is not easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is." The rancher, observing from the porch, nodded in approval. He had always believed that trust and responsibility went hand in hand. By allowing Tay to learn and contribute, they were teaching him skills that went beyond chores. They were teaching him the values of honesty, courage, and perseverance. As the days passed, the town continued to watch, some with admiration, others with skepticism. Slowly, however, attitudes began to shift. People noticed Tay's dedication, the way he worked alongside the family, and the respect he showed to everyone. His presence, once seen as unusual or even troubling, began to challenge long-held prejudices. Neighbors whispered that perhaps the family's decision was not reckless, but brave, and maybe even wise. The rancher's approach was deliberate. He never forced Tay into situations he was not ready for, but he also did not allow fear or hesitation to dominate. He gave the boy opportunities to show his abilities and to prove his character. Tay responded with courage and determination, slowly earning not just the family's trust, but the attention of the town. One afternoon, a group of children from the town wandered near the ranch, curious about Tay. The son invited them over, allowing Tay to show his skills with the animals and the land. At first, the children were hesitant, unsure what to make of him. But as Tay demonstrated his knowledge and courage, they began to warm up, asking questions and even offering help. By the end of the day, laughter and play had replaced fear and suspicion. The boy, once an outsider, was slowly becoming a part of the community. Despite these small victories, challenges remained. The family knew that not everyone in town would accept Tay, and they were prepared to defend their decision with calm determination. The rancher understood that true leadership required both courage and patience. He was ready to face criticism, knowing that doing what was right often required standing firm in the face of opposition. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, the rancher spoke quietly but firmly. "Tay has earned our trust," he said. "He is learning, growing, and showing character, but we must all remember that trust is fragile. It must be protected, nurtured, and respected. The town may watch, but we will act with integrity, not fear." Tay listened closely, understanding the weight of the rancher's words. For the first time in his life, he realized that being trusted was both a gift and a responsibility. He felt a quiet determination to live up to the family's expectations, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to honor the kindness and care they had shown him. The night fell over the plains and the stars appeared in the vast sky. The ranch, once quiet and ordinary, had become a place of learning, growth, and courage. Tay was no longer just a boy in hiding. He was a part of a family, slowly becoming a part of the community. And as the town watched and whispered, the rancher, his wife, and their son knew that the path they had chosen was not easy, but it was the right one. The challenges of acceptance, trust, and courage were far from over. The town would continue to react, some with admiration, others with suspicion. But one thing was certain: the actions of this family, guided by compassion and integrity, were beginning to change hearts and minds. And Tay, once a frightened boy, was learning that life could hold hope, safety, and even happiness, if he was willing to trust, work hard, and embrace the guidance of those who believed in him. As the ranch settled into the quiet of night, the rancher stood on the porch, looking out over the land. He reflected on the days that had passed and the challenges that lay ahead. Protecting Tay, teaching him, and helping him grow would not be easy. But he knew that courage, kindness, and perseverance could overcome fear and prejudice. And in that quiet moment, beneath the vast starry sky, he felt a quiet confidence that the right path had been chosen, no matter what the town might say. The ranch was slowly becoming a place of harmony, though it had not always been easy. Tay had grown more confident with each passing day, learning the rhythm of life on the ranch and slowly becoming familiar with the responsibilities of tending to animals, gathering firewood, and helping with chores. The son guided him patiently, showing him not only how to work but also why every task mattered. Every action, from feeding the cattle to mending fences, taught Tay more than just survival skills. It taught him respect, discipline, and the value of hard work. The mother, too, noticed Tay's quiet resilience. Though he had endured hardship and fear in the past, he now displayed curiosity and intelligence that reminded her of the family's own son when he was young. She spent hours teaching him simple tasks like cooking and preserving food, always encouraging him with gentle praise when he succeeded and careful guidance when he struggled. Each small victory, whether he learned to milk a cow properly or carry a full bucket of water without spilling, filled the house with a quiet sense of pride. The rancher, observing all this, decided it was time to test Tay's character more deeply. It was not a test in cruelty, but one of trust and responsibility. He assigned Tay a larger task, to care for a small section of the fields and the livestock within it for an entire week. "I want to see how you handle responsibility," the rancher said. "This is not just about chores. It is about understanding, planning, and taking care of others who depend on you." Tay approached the task with seriousness. At first, he struggled with the sheer scale of the work. Watering the fields, feeding the animals, and checking the fences demanded careful attention and planning. Mistakes could be costly, and he quickly realized that he needed to think ahead and stay alert. At times he grew frustrated, but he remembered the lessons the son had taught him: patience, observation, and learning from errors. He persevered day after day, showing both determination and resourcefulness. The son watched Tay closely, offering guidance but never taking over. He reminded Tay that it was okay to make mistakes as long as he learned from them. "Every time you fix a mistake," the son said, "you are learning something new. That is more valuable than doing everything perfectly the first time." Tay absorbed this advice and began approaching each task with more confidence, understanding that failure was not the end, but a stepping stone toward growth. The mother, observing Tay's progress, began to notice subtle changes in his demeanor. He smiled more freely, laughed occasionally, and even shared small stories about his past, though always carefully, never revealing too much too soon. She encouraged him gently, creating an environment where he could feel safe expressing himself. Slowly, Tay began to trust the family, realizing that they genuinely cared for him and that he had a place in this home. As Tay grew more competent, the town continued to observe from a distance. Neighbors who had once whispered doubts now noticed the boy's progress and the family's dedication. Some began to admire the rancher's approach, seeing it as a bold example of compassion and integrity. Others remained skeptical, but even they could not deny that Tay was learning and contributing in meaningful ways. The family's patience and fairness were slowly transforming public perception, challenging long-held prejudices, and teaching the town that character and kindness mattered more than appearance or origin. One afternoon, the rancher gave Tay a particularly challenging task: to lead a small herd of cattle to a distant pasture. This required not only physical effort but careful planning and leadership. Tay was nervous, but the rancher placed his hand on the boy's shoulder and said, "You can do this. Trust yourself and remember what you have learned. I will be nearby, but this is your responsibility." Tay took a deep breath and led the herd. At first the cattle resisted and one almost wandered off, but Tay remained calm, recalling the techniques he had observed and practiced. Slowly, with steady guidance and patience, he managed to lead the herd safely to the pasture. When he returned to the ranch, the rancher nodded approvingly. "You handled that well," he said, "not because it was easy, but because you did it with thought, patience, and courage. That is true strength." The son and mother celebrated the achievement with him, praising his dedication and perseverance. Tay felt a sense of pride he had never known before. For the first time, he realized that he was capable, trusted, and valued. The boy who had once been terrified and unsure now felt a sense of belonging, a feeling that was completely new and deeply meaningful. Over the following weeks, Tay continued to grow in both skill and character. He became more independent, yet always sought advice when needed. He learned the names and habits of each animal, the patterns of the weather, and the importance of planning each day's work. The rancher quietly observed, occasionally offering challenges that tested not only Tay's ability, but also his judgment and decision-making. The mother noticed Tay's transformation in smaller, quieter ways. He began helping with cooking without being asked. He offered to assist in the garden, and he even comforted the younger animals when they were frightened. His empathy and awareness of others' needs became evident, reflecting lessons that went beyond chores and skills. He was learning how to live with compassion and responsibility. Meanwhile, the son continued to bond with Tay. They shared meals, stories, and even moments of laughter that had been rare in Tay's life. The boy learned to trust the son as both a teacher and a friend, appreciating his patience and kindness. They began to develop a rhythm together, a silent understanding that made work easier and life on the ranch more enjoyable. Despite the growing harmony, the town's watchful eyes remained. Some neighbors could not ignore the positive changes they saw. Children in the town began to interact with Tay, curious about this boy who had become so capable and respected on the ranch. At first, they were cautious, but Tay's skills, confidence, and gentle nature gradually won them over. They saw that he was no longer a frightened, distant figure, but someone who could laugh, work, and befriend others. The rancher's decision to treat Tay with fairness and trust was having a ripple effect. People began to question their own assumptions about strength, courage, and kindness. The boy's presence challenged old prejudices and inspired reflection. Even those who had been skeptical began to respect the family for their courage and integrity. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, the rancher gathered the family together. "Tay has done well," he said. "He has shown courage, patience, and dedication, but the journey is not finished. Life will continue to test him, and we must continue to guide him with care and fairness. True character is revealed not only by success, but by how one responds to challenges and adversity." Tay listened intently, feeling the weight and importance of the rancher's words. For the first time, he understood that he was not merely a guest or someone to be protected. He was a part of this family, responsible for his actions, and for contributing to the home that had welcomed him. This realization filled him with determination and pride. The family then turned to practical matters. They discussed Tay's next tasks, planning ways for him to contribute more meaningfully to the ranch while continuing to develop his skills and judgment. The mother spoke about teaching him more about cooking and managing the household, while the son suggested involving him in larger tasks with the animals. The rancher emphasized that every challenge would be an opportunity for learning and growth, reinforcing the values of patience, trust, and responsibility. As the night fell, the ranch became quiet again, but the energy of progress and transformation lingered. Tay lay in his small bed, reflecting on the day's achievements and lessons. He realized that he had learned more than he ever thought possible, not just about work, but about trust, responsibility, and human kindness. For the first time, he felt hope for the future, knowing that he had people who believed in him and who would guide him to become a better, stronger person. The rancher stood on the porch, looking out over the fields. He reflected on Tay's growth, feeling a quiet pride and satisfaction. The boy had proven himself capable, resilient, and trustworthy, yet the journey was far from over. Life would continue to test him, but the foundation had been set, one of trust, responsibility, and compassion. The town continued to watch, slowly recognizing that the family's decision to welcome Tay was not reckless but wise. The boy's transformation became a symbol of courage, integrity, and the power of kindness. And as the stars appeared in the clear night sky, the rancher, his wife, and their son knew that they were shaping not only a young boy's life but also the hearts and minds of those around them. In the quiet of the night, Tay finally drifted into sleep, exhausted but proud. The boy who had arrived frightened and unsure was now growing into someone strong, capable, and valued. The rancher smiled quietly, knowing that the hardest lessons often led to the greatest growth, and that the boy's journey was only just beginning. The sun rose slowly over the ranch, painting the fields in a soft golden light. The days had become warmer, and the cattle grazed calmly, the air filled with the quiet sounds of life on the plains. Inside the house, the family moved through their morning routines with a sense of purpose and calm. Tay, who had once been nervous and unsure, now carried himself with confidence. He had learned the rhythms of the ranch, the responsibilities that came with every task, and the importance of trust and hard work. Yet, even with all his progress, the most important decision of his life was still about to come. The rancher had been thinking carefully for weeks. He watched Tay grow, observing not just his ability to complete chores but also his character, his empathy, and his resilience. The boy had proven himself in every way, through patience, courage, and determination. And now, the rancher knew it was time to make a decision that would not only change Tay's life forever, but also challenge the entire town to reconsider their beliefs about kindness, justice, and humanity. That afternoon, the family gathered in the main room. Tay was nervous, sensing that something important was about to happen. The rancher spoke first, his voice calm yet carrying weight. "Tay," he said, "you have worked hard, learned much, and shown courage and wisdom beyond your years. You have earned the respect of this family, and you have shown that you can be trusted. But there is something more I wish to do, something that will affect not just you, but how the world sees you and how you see yourself." Tay's heart pounded. He did not know what to expect, but he felt a mixture of fear and hope. The rancher continued, "When you arrived here, you were alone, afraid, and uncertain. You could have been seen as a burden or a stranger to be kept apart. But we chose to see you for who you are, a brave, intelligent, and kind young man. And now I wish to make that recognition official." The mother looked at the rancher, her eyes soft with pride and emotion. She had seen the boy grow from a frightened child into someone strong and capable, and she knew that this moment was as important for him as it was for the family. The son, sitting beside Tay, leaned forward, his expression filled with encouragement and hope. The rancher then spoke the words that would change everything. "Tay," he said firmly, "you are no longer just a guest in this home. You are a part of this family. You have the same rights, respect, and opportunities as any of us. You are free to live here, to learn, to grow, and to thrive. This land, this home, and our hearts are yours as well." Tay froze for a moment, unable to believe what he had just heard. His eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of joy and relief. He had never imagined that someone would offer him such trust and acceptance. For the first time in his life, he felt completely safe, valued, and loved. The years of fear, uncertainty, and suffering seemed to fall away, replaced by a sense of hope and belonging that he had never known. The mother moved closer, placing her hand on Tay's shoulder. "You have earned this," she said softly. "Not because we feel sorry for you, but because you have shown us who you truly are. You belong here, and we will support you in everything you do." The son smiled, his eyes shining with pride. "Welcome to the family, Tay," he said. "You've worked hard, learned, and shown courage. Now you can truly call this place home." Tay could hardly speak. He bowed his head slightly, overcome with emotion. "Thank you," he whispered. I don't know what to say. I've never been treated like this before." The rancher shook his head gently. "No words are necessary," he said. "Your actions, your character, and your heart have spoken louder than any words ever could. This is your life now, and we are honored to be a part of it." Word of the rancher's decision spread quickly through the town. People were shocked, some in disbelief, others in admiration. The idea that a family would take in a boy from another community, treat him with respect, and formally make him part of the household challenged deeply held beliefs and traditions. Some criticized the decision, fearing change and misunderstanding the motives behind the family's actions. Yet many were inspired, seeing an example of courage, integrity, and the power of kindness. As the days passed, Tay continued to grow and contribute in new ways. The rancher gave him more responsibilities, not as punishment, but as a way to teach leadership, judgment, and empathy. Tay learned to make decisions for the well-being of the ranch, to care for animals, and to assist in guiding younger workers. The son continued to teach him practical skills, and the mother nurtured his emotional growth, helping him navigate challenges with patience and understanding. Tay's confidence soared. He began to speak more openly, share his ideas, and even take the lead in certain tasks. The town began to see the transformation in him. A boy once feared and misunderstood was now strong, capable, and respected. Children in the town played with him, neighbors asked for his help, and even the skeptical voices began to soften. The rancher's bold decision had not only changed Tay's life, but was also reshaping the community's understanding of courage, compassion, and justice. One afternoon, a group of townspeople approached the ranch. They had come to see Tay for themselves, curious about the boy who had been welcomed and respected by the family. The rancher greeted them calmly. "You are welcome," he said. "Come and see for yourselves." The townspeople observed Tay as he worked with the animals, helped repair fences, and guided younger children who had wandered into the ranch. They were amazed by his skill, confidence, and kindness. Slowly, skepticism gave way to admiration. People realized that the family had made the right choice, not out of pity but out of recognition of Tay's character and potential. The rancher spoke to them, his voice calm and authoritative. "Tay is a part of this family," he said. "He has earned our trust, respect, and guidance. He has proven his strength, courage, and character. I hope that you will see this not as unusual, but as an example of what can happen when we act with fairness, integrity, and compassion." The townspeople were quiet, reflecting on his words. Many nodded slowly, understanding the truth in them. The boy who had once been an outsider was now a symbol of hope and change. He had not only transformed his own life, but was also helping to transform the hearts and minds of those around him. As evening fell, the family gathered together. Tay sat with the rancher, his mother, and the son, feeling a sense of peace and belonging that he had never known. The rancher placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember," he said, "freedom and trust come with responsibility. You have earned both, but you must continue to grow, learn, and act with integrity. That is the path to becoming the person you are meant to be." Tay nodded, understanding the gravity of the moment. He felt a deep sense of gratitude and determination. He knew that he had been given a rare gift, a chance to live freely, to belong, and to thrive, and he vowed to honor that gift every day of his life. The mother smiled softly, proud of the boy who had once been so frightened and unsure. "You are part of this family now," she said. "You are safe and you are loved. Never forget that." The son leaned back, a playful grin on his face. "And don't forget," he said, "you also have to help with chores." They all laughed, and Tay joined in, feeling the warmth and joy of family for the first time. Night fell over the ranch, the sky filled with stars that stretched endlessly across the plains. The rancher looked out over the fields, reflecting on the journey they had taken together. A boy had arrived frightened and alone, and through trust, guidance, and compassion, he had grown into someone strong, capable, and respected. The family had made a bold choice, one that had challenged tradition and risked criticism, but they had done it because it was right. Tay lay in his bed that night, exhausted but happy. He thought of the hardships he had endured, the fear he had felt, and the hope he now carried. For the first time, he dreamed not of survival, but of life, full, meaningful, and free. He knew that the path ahead would have challenges, but he also knew that he had a family who believed in him, a home that welcomed him, and the courage to face whatever came next. The ranch, once ordinary and quiet, had become a place of transformation. It was not just the land that had changed, but the hearts of those who lived there and those who watched from afar. Through a simple act of courage and kindness, the rancher and his family had shown that even in a world often harsh and unfair, compassion, integrity, and trust could triumph. And as the stars shone brightly over the plains, Tay slept peacefully, knowing that he had finally found a place where he belonged, where he was valued, and where his life could be filled with hope, learning, and love. The story of the boy who had once been a slave, and the family who chose to believe in him, had reached its first great conclusion, but the lessons it taught would echo for years to come.